Suppose you just broke your phone and you have no money to buy a new one, but you really need a new phone. And I come up to you and I'm like, okay, here's 200 Canadian dollars. Go buy yourself a phone, right? Get yourself suited, get yourself going. And you go home and you hop on eBay or Marketplace because you obviously know that $200 is not going to buy you a new phone, at least something that's good, right? And you stumble across dozens and dozens of phones, multiple phones, all for $200, right? And you think, hey, if they're $200, they must give the same experience, right? They must all be given the same experience. And honestly, I would like to tell you, you're dead wrong. You come across two devices. Here I've sourced the Samsung S22 and the Samsung A53. And I'm trying to answer that question for you today to show you how vastly different your experience can be with the same price range. Now, these phones were both released in the year 2022 and they're both 4 years old by now, and they can both be found for around the same $200 price mark. But how do they actually stack up against each other, and which one should you actually go for? Starting off, the A53. This thing is built with plastic all the way around, right? Like plastic rails, plastic edges, plastic back. Nothing feels premium about this thing. It just feels like a regular cheap phone. Then you come to the S22. This thing is a glass sandwich, right? Glass in the back, Gorilla Glass Victus on the front, frosted, right? And then you have aluminum rails and aluminum that covers over the camera visor. When you pick this thing up, it screams flagship, it screams money. It does not feel $200. Whereas this thing, I'll 100% be like, yeah, $200. So the first point right there easily goes to the S22, the flagship. Then you come to the screen, right? The A53 kind of fights back here a bit. Bigger screen, maybe he has a chance of taking this. Let's see. 120Hz AMOLED screen comparing with the S22 smaller 120Hz AMOLED screen. So you might be like, all right, they're both 120Hz, they're both AMOLED, must be the same thing, right? This is where I would also like to point wrong. This is where the flagship takes the lead again. This thing, outdoors, can get 1300 nits of brightness, whereas this thing, the A53, can only get up to 800 nits. So in sunlight, if I were to give you either phone, the S22 would be actually legible in sunlight. You wouldn't have to cover or try to look for shade. Whereas the A53, on the other hand, 800 nits is like, I don't know, you might be able to see it in like lesser sunlight, but you're mostly gonna have to like put your hand over the phone screen to kind of make a shade so you can see this thing. I've used this thing for like a few years, and trust me, outdoors is just not a good experience with this thing. So another point easily to Samsung, S22. Well, yeah, they're both Samsung, right? Yeah, so the S22 takes the point. Now here's where things get interesting. This is 2-0 now. How do this stack up performance-wise? Whew, I would like to seriously apologize to the A53, but it's about to catch some serious strays. Dude, the A53 gets stomped on. It's literally dog water compared to the S22, right? It has the Exynos 1280 chip with 6 GB of RAM, and dude, this thing just sucks. Like, it's not a good experience. I'll just be using it and it'll have random stutters and hitches. And then I'll open Spotify and start playing music, and then those hitches get even worse because I have a music app playing in the background. And then if I start scrolling reels, I don't know, it just doesn't feel smooth. It doesn't feel like 120Hz, right? Like, that's the thing. It's 120Hz on paper, but there's just not enough horsepower to push that screen to 120Hz all the time. Then you have games like Pokemon Go, and dude, this thing sucks. It's so bad. It lags. It just lags everywhere. It's not a good experience, right? And then you have the S22. Absolutely slaughters the A53. This thing has a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, and dude, this thing rips. Butter smooth animations, apps are always opening fast, 24/7, no lag at all. I've never noticed this thing hitch, right? Yeah, sure, it gets a bit warm, but this thing just rips. Spotify open at the same time, Pokemon Go open at the same time, no problem. Matter of fact, you can open 2 Pokemon Go's at the same time, which is really taxing game, by the way, just for reference. 2 of them at the same time, and the phone will not lag. That's how big the power gap is between these two devices. Like, forget what they say on benchmarks. Yeah, sure, the S22 benchmarks are too, but the real world use is just so vastly different. This thing stomps it. You will never, ever, ever want to have the performance of an A53 when you have an S22 available right there, right? Another easy point for the flagship. And speaking of the RAM as well, 8 gigabytes of RAM on the S22, 6 gigabytes of RAM on the A53. Same story, right? Like this thing, the A53 will close apps a lot faster in the background than the S22 will ever have to. So if I open 10 apps at the same time, right, and they're all open in the background, and then if I joggle back to the other app, the old app, the first app that I ever opened, the S22, 9 times out of 10, is going to have that app open, whereas the A53 is going to have to reload that app because it just does not have enough RAM. So yeah, performance-wise, another point for the S22, that's 3-0, honestly. I'm kind of scared for the A53. What's it going to do? Like, does it have anything up its sleeve? How is it going to make a difference? And then you come to the battery. And this is the first time the A53 shines. This thing dogs on the S22. Like, it's not even close. This thing smokes the S22. S22 has a 3700 mAh battery and has a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, which guzzles battery. It's a really taxing CPU that loves power, okay? Then you come to the A53, and this thing has a 5000 mAh battery and a CPU that barely saves power because just how weak the CPU is, right? It doesn't need a lot of power. So think about it like this. Let's say you have an elephant and then you have a cat. Obviously, the elephant is going to need a lot more power, a lot more water to drink than the cat would, right? Now let's say you give the elephant a cup of water, whereas you give the cat a large bowl of water. That's what I mean, right? That's the analogy I'm trying to make. That the elephant needs a lot more juice, but it has a much smaller pool to work with, so it's going to drain that power right out. It's going to drain that water bowl, the water cup instantly. Whereas the cat, it's going to need a lot less water and has a much bigger source to work with. So it's going to take forever to sip through that power. That's why the A53 dogs. It just stomps all over the S22 in battery life. This thing might get you maybe a day of battery if you're lucky, whereas the A53 will easily get you 2 day battery life. That's the first point that the A53 claims for itself, the mid-rangers. So Team Mid-Range is finally starting to make some sort of comeback, right? And Team Flagship, still in the lead, but it's not looking too good now, right? It's not all victory for them. Then you come to the cameras. Just when I thought that Team Mid-Range was about to make a comeback. This is hard to say this, but the S22 Ultra, sorry, not Ultra, the S22 completely destroys and eats the mid-ranger A53 for breakfast. It's not even close. On paper, the A53 has more cameras, right? It even has macro lens. And on paper, the S22 has a slightly worse camera setup. But in real world use, every single time I snap a photo with both phones of the same thing, every single time the S22 will give me a way better photo, a way sharper photo from any lenses. And then it even has 30x zoom with a telescopic lens. So this thing has nice zoom and a much bigger sensor. Okay, videography. Maybe the A53 can recover, right? Somehow. 8K. Yeah, 8K on this tiny S22, whereas 4K on this A53. And just overall, video looks way better. Way better stabilization, way better processing. It's not even close. Like, I'm sorry, it's not close. If you use a mid-range phone versus if you use a flagship phone, cameras do not lie. Okay, that's an easy point to the S22. Easiest point I've ever given to it. Okay, it's not looking too good for the A53, but there is still one more category left where maybe it could make a comeback. The software. How is the software experience on these? And honestly, both of these devices are in 2022, right? Both of these are 4-year-old by now, and both of them have reached the end of life. Android 16, one UI 8 on this, one UI 8 on this. It's not looking too good for the A53, honestly. But neither is it for the S22, because that's it. Like, this is the last year they get updates, and there you go. No more updates for these things. No more latest and greatest features. So that sucks, right? Like, the S22 has a lot more power where it can actually take those new updates and still run them, but Samsung only promised 4 years, and they're not going to commit more, like the newer devices that get 7 years, which is sad, because the S22 could actually run them, whereas the A53, honestly, it can barely run the current software. So, software, I will have to take a point off for both of them, so no points given. Final score kind of tallies up to 4-1, right? Big landslide. Not even a competition. So if I walked up to you with $200, I would 100% go for the S22 over any A53. On the off chance, like 9 out of 10 times, let's say you don't go for the S22, on the off chance, the 1%, where you value battery life so much, where you're willing to compromise everything else, and you go for the A53, I'm telling you again and again, it's not worth it. Like, it's not worth making all the compromises just for better battery. I would just walk around with the S22 with maybe a charger or a power bank in my pocket. Dude, the A53 is not worth it for $200, especially if you can get the S22 for the same price. But if I were you, if I were in your shoes, I wouldn't get neither one of these phones. I would maybe try to save $100 or $200 more, $300-400, and maybe get the S23 or the S24, which are still getting software. And they're essentially the S22, but supported for longer. That's my take on these two phones. Team Flagship clears it. Team Mid-Ranger, not so sure. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.